Ready for the next? Yeah. When I read the title of our next speaker, why the AI area is not a threat, it's a leadership identity crisis we need. Honestly, I thought, finally, someone is saying it. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel really like that. Our chance to fundamentally change the nature of how we work. This is really our chance. If it would not interrupt it like that, we would stay the same. We would fix up things and put some patches there and there. You remember the name of our conference? Leadership Horizon. So if you're here for the first time and you came here for a comfortable status quo leadership advice, sorry to say, but this is the wrong place. Our speaker is here to push your buttons and expand your horizon. And this is what our next one is doing. With a background that spans from early internet service provider to Hollywood film production at Warner Brothers, Matteo has seen it all. If you're ready to shift your mind, then please join me in welcoming Matteo Cassese.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. You know what's the scariest thing before you give a keynote on AI? It's checking Twitter. So thank goodness this morning there is no news, and right now San Francisco is going to sleep. So we can work through the day and get scared later. Who here is scared about AI? Who is worried? Who is on the pessimistic scale? Okay, who's a little bit neutral about it, like so-so? And who's the optimist? All right, we're perfectly mixed. Wonderful. Why am I here? I'm here because of my AI agent. So I gave my AI agent a list of institutions and a list of conferences. And you know what AI is great at? Is finding similar things. That's how it actually works. And then a few days later, this popped up on my screen. There's a Vienna leadership development company. They have a conference called Leadership Horizon. You might have heard about it. It's a perfect topical match for me. Then I said, approve. And I got some research on it. And this is all about you, so you know it very well. And then it told me, if you want to reach out to them, there's a process. So the next day, I woke up, and in my email drafts, I had this, ready to send. I checked the information, and at 10:30 on the 8th of April, I hit send. And lo and behold, I'm here. So my job today is to transition you from malaise to renaissance and avoid this. Travel from agentic fever to existential dread, which, by the way, is the direction we'd be heading naturally. But to get there, we need help. And I brought a lot of help. The first person that will help us is William Gibson, the author of Neuromancer, one of my favorite sci-fi novels, where, by the way, it's written in the 80s, there is an AI that recruits a human to do a heist. And William Gibson, offhand in an interview, says, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. For today, I would like you to think that that future is already here, that you have an all-capable colleague in a box. All right? My second helper is Joseph Campbell, the comparative mythologist who brought us the hero's journey and basically shaped all of the entertainment that we watch today. And Joseph has a message for you. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. My name is Matteo Cassese. I talk about the human side of innovation. And today, I'm going to help you enter that cave. Only I call it the gap. And if you were a convertible, right, and there's a gap in the road, you would want a bridge. You don't want to go in a ditch. Well, I feel for you, but today we go in the gap, in the cave. And I think this time for you, the companies at work, it does feel you're pushing, in this case at a wall, but maybe at an elephant. And I am the first one that thought, being in the gap is a bad thing. Being in discomfort is bad. You know, as a kid, I spent a lot of time in the gap. At the beginning, I loved computers as a kid. And I loved computers where nerds were not popular. And that really put me at odds with society. Another thing is that when my classmates were chasing girls, I started thinking, I don't want to chase girls, I want to chase boys. And I was wondering, when will society allow me to do that? That was Italy, Rome in the 90s. When I reflect back on that time and I think about the gap, I realize that the gap is just conflict. It's the conflict that happens between where we are and where we want to go. And what needs to happen is that we become a person that is able to reach the goals that we want to reach. When I look at the boxers, you know which one inspires me? Not the one standing proud. The one falling to the ground. Because that's how we learn to deal with what's next. That's how we learn to become the people that we need to become to approach the next chapter. And let's look at this AI chapter. There's a lot that has happened. At the beginning, it was just a chatbot. And it was amazing, and it had context, and now it has memory, and we can talk with it. And sometimes we might think it's our friend. It's not, but it gives us that illusion. The second phase is the one of the coding tools. Who here is already using coding tools? Okay, well, there's quite a, I would say 15%. Okay, you're at phase 2. Isn't it amazing? Instead of just chatting, there's something that's being produced, and it works. Maybe it's an app for my phone, maybe it's a utility for my computer. Everybody can code. Extraordinary. I still have 2 other phases. The agentic phase. And in the agentic phase, what happens is that I ask that same tool that before was a chat and then was producing code, I ask it to be the program. How does that work? So before I would say, you know what, I want to count calories, create an app for my phone where when I snap a picture of my dinner, it tells me how many calories there are. So coding tool, product. In the agentic, you just tell, you know, be my calorie counter. I'll just send you the picture. It changes everything. And that's not even where we are right now. We are already at the orchestration phase, where we are thinking, oh, I don't want to even talk to the agent. I want to talk to the CEO who's responsible for a swarm of agents. Okay. If now you met somebody and you had to explain all of this to them, could you explain it clearly? Not a chance, okay? It's crazy. And by the way, this is something that I can tell you because we are there. I have no idea how many other phases there are going forward. There could be so many other new phases. I remember that I should not disturb my mom when I heard the clacking and the clicking of the typewriter. And I remember the time when the computer entered the office. I was about 6 years old. And people were switching on the computer. It had a big switch at the back. And then they would type. And then they would look at this letter, all nice and typed. They would print it. It would make a lot of noise. And then they would switch off the computer. we were using, they were not saving, by the way, okay? There wasn't anything called autosave or anything like that. We were using the computer like a typewriter. And I believe that this is what's happening with how we're using AI today. We are using AI like a computer. It is not a computer, it's an agent, and probably it's not an agent, it's something else that we're going to discover in a couple of weeks or days, or maybe tomorrow morning, checking Twitter. What happens to engineers will happen to everyone. The future is already here. It's not evenly distributed. It's already distributed in your engineering teams. So let's look at an engineer. And we don't need to go far because we have an engineer, an Austrian engineer called Peter Steinberger. And as we look at this workstation, obviously he's working on OpenClaw, and most probably you've heard of it. Let's enhance for a moment on what is happening on this screen. Because Peter is showing us all of these columns of text. I've counted them for you. Just on this monitor, there's 9 of them. This is what you do when you code with an agent. You instruct one agent, you move on to the second one. You instruct the second one, and you move on to the third, all the way. And then you go back to the first one, because the first one got stuck, and so on. Can you imagine what that does to your attention, to your brain, to this context switching all the time? Andrej Karpathy is probably one of the wizards of AI at the moment. He was #1 lead AI at Tesla, and he made self-driving possible only with cameras, without special sensors. And he was one of the co-founders of OpenAI. He says that working with agents specifically is giving a perpetual state of AI psychosis. Agents are getting the AI wizard sick. I call this agentic fever. I don't like the idea of psychosis. I'd like to be a temporary thing that we go through, okay? The world got it in November of 2025 when Peter released OpenClaw, and it showed us what was possible in terms of agentic engineering. And I got it in February, and I started researching all the tools. Fear of missing out. Am I up to date? Am I using the right models? I had to learn all of this vocabulary. And then the work with the agents started bleeding in the weekends. And then it started bleeding in the nights, because it's very exciting. It's doing actual work. It's bringing my business forward. I couldn't stop. In the middle of this, I take a trip to Rome, my hometown. When I'm in Rome, I always chat with the taxi drivers. And I asked the taxi driver, how is it going? And the guy says, oh, it's fantastic. I almost made my quota. What does it mean? Well, you know, every day I wake up in the morning and I think of a number. And whenever I reach that number, I turn the taxi around, I drive home, and I go to my wife. What happens then? Well, she berates me and she tells me, well, if it was a good day for making money, why aren't you out there making more money so that we can afford nice things? But she doesn't get it. I get it. I'm the wife. I can't stop. I showed you my agent. So my agent right now can do in 1 hour the work that I used to do in 1 day. Do you think that I have a thermostat? Do you think that I have a quota? Do you think that I know how to stop, when to stop? I don't. What happens when you start having agentic fever is that you start this cycle of overproduction. Like I have right now, literally, I have 100 emails to approve in my drafts. And it's overwhelming, and you burn out. And then you go on this cycle, and then you figure out a better way of doing things. And you continue on this cycle. But there is another cycle, not just the overproduction burnout, but actually a hype frustration cycle with AI. Researchers call AI the jagged frontier. What does it mean? On the peaks, the model is fantastic. Coding, for instance. On the valleys, common sense, the model is terrible. There is a problem on the website. Oh, well, if I delete the website, the problem is gone. This is an actual process, and it's happening on production servers at companies, including the ones that we look up to for innovation. For instance, Amazon. Our work is the dotted line. Sometimes, when you're working with an agent, you have this Nobel laureate, smartest guy in the room, or girl. And sometimes you have a 6-year-old throwing a tantrum, and you never know which one and at what time you're going to meet them. What happens to engineers will happen to everyone. So, how did engineers work up until now? Well, code was expensive and required craft, so there was a lot of planning. Then, code took time and effort, and then there was some time to verify what was done. With agentic workflows, planning is not that important. Oftentimes, people skip it altogether. They just prompt the model and they say, oh, well, do that. Coding is much faster. We will see if it's cheap or not. This is a big question mark, but right now it's cheap. Get one of those $200 subscriptions and you get a lot of usage for that. But then there's a lot of time to verify. A lot of slop. I think this is about to happen to you. I think that everyone in this room will have a fast execution machine at their disposal. And now the question, as Gunther was telling us, is, will we have good input or bad input? Because if we have bad input into this fast execution machine, guess what? Garbage in, garbage out, as Sabine was telling us. So there you go. This is bound to happen. Even if you know about it, it doesn't mean that now that I've warned you that this is not going to happen in your organization. When we work, when software engineers work, they use their craft. They're like artists, right? They know a different language. Right now, they're becoming managers of agents. It's like telling a really talented artist, like, you paint so well that you should open an art gallery. Managing agents will be part of your job too. And finally, software engineers, the honest ones, call this year a transition, and they're kind of preparing for what's next, and I think we'll all enter a transition very soon. What happens to engineers will happen to everyone. We have a sense of malaise. We have a sense of malaise because the robots didn't come for the menial jobs, for the factory workers, for the truckers. They are coming, but they came for the creatives, for the software engineers, and for the poets. The robots aren't scrubbing our toilets, they're copywriting our websites. I have a framing for you, though, that might be helpful to go from malaise to renaissance. It is a forced midlife crisis. It doesn't happen at midlife. It happens right now. And it is a crisis of meaning, a crisis of identity. It's one of those midlife crises where you think, yeah, maybe I should buy a sports car and start dating somebody much younger. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. What is happening specifically? Well, hustle. Hustle is the most confusing thing right now. So I have a machine that is all capable. I've asked you to imagine that the future is already here. I have a machine that is all capable, yet I'm hustling like never before. Because if I compare myself to this machine that doesn't sleep, doesn't need to go on vacation, doesn't burn out, etc., well, I shouldn't hustle at all. But once I add agents to my workforce, then I have to keep up with them, and they don't sleep, and I start to stop sleeping. Whenever we were in trouble in the past, we asked the help of playbooks, frameworks, right? And I'm the first one who have taught these frameworks and have learned these frameworks. Like, for instance, a few years ago, I thought that my business needed a repeatable marketing machine. And I basically downloaded the whole framework of a repeatable marketing machine. And I spent 2 years creating the machine. And I spent 200,000 euros creating this machine. And I had a product that I hated, customers that didn't love it, and a burnout for myself. I think that right now, if there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 instruction manual, that is a prompt for the language model. It's not a framework for humans. And don't even get me started on productivity. Because productivity, at this point, why are we even talking about human productivity anymore? The transition is hard because we have to move from hustle to reflection. As things are speeding up, we need to slow down. That's extremely counterintuitive, but we must go from frameworks to principles. You know, frameworks were always based on principles, and when I talk about principles, it's very simple. For every discipline, there are principles. Chemistry, physics, mathematics, behavioral economics, psychology, systems thinking, logic, philosophy. There's so many principles, but it's really hard to rip the Band-Aid and look below the framework because we've become, frankly, complacent, and they used to work, so they were nice. And then there is this shift from output to input. Powering through, working more was easy. That's what we learned from our parents. That's what we saw brought us benefit in the past, and it won't anymore. And I don't want to talk about productivity anymore. This is becoming a crisis of meaning, and the big issue in the end is that output was an easy answer, and input, reflecting, thinking deeply, thinking in a philosophical way, thinking in a logical way, creating really clean thought that creates a great input in a system is much harder. So we are going to be faced with this cave. We need to enter that cave. What does society do to us to help us get into that cave? Do you need to go anywhere? Don't worry. I'll send you a card, tell you exactly where it is. Do you need something? I'll get it delivered to you next day. Do you have a moment of free time? I have thousands, if not millions of hours of television for your entertainment. Do you have a dull moment and you start hearing that thought in your head, creativity, for instance? Don't worry. I'll get you a podcast, so while you're working out, or you're doing the dishes, or you're walking to work, you can have the illusion of working. And you have a little bit of time, I can give you a little YouTube video, and this video is potentially, yes, and this video will keep you entertained and educated, and it's sponsored. And finally, you just have a sliver of time, don't worry about a thing. I can get you scrolling endlessly on your phone, so you won't feel the gap at all. I'm afraid that we are talking today just about one AI revolution, about work, about our organizations, about our businesses. That's really important. There is a second revolution, the one that I'm worried about, is about our attention. The moment one of these companies creates a system, a game that adapts to our behavior in real time and makes it even much more addictive than the systems that we have today, that's where we really will have a problem as a society. We have to name the enemy, and the enemy is convenience. If there's no friction, there's no crisis. If there's no crisis, there's no questioning. If there's no questioning, there's no renaissance. We're in trouble because the maps that we've used up until now are terrible. They suck. And we need to throw away our maps and learn a new skill, the skill of map making. And you are in a great position because you'll get to do this for yourselves, and you will get to do this for the organization that you work with. I brought another guide. Rick Rubin is a legendary producer of bands like the Beastie Boys, but also artists like Johnny Cash and rock pop groups like Red Hot Chili Peppers. And he came out with this book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, a few years ago. In this book, he tells us in terms of priority, inspiration comes first, you come next, the audience comes last, the work reveals itself as you go. Hold on a second. Inspiration comes first? No. We're at work. The audience comes first. The work reveals itself? No. There's spec sheets for the work. It's a brave, bold, new world. We need to find a way to bridge the gap. The way I do it personally, my personal map is going to look wildly different from your map. But I have 3 archetypes that inspire me. The first one is the principled CEO. And the way I do that is I spend as much time as I can, and not enough because of my agents, in a room where there's just books. And I can read, write, get bored, meditate. That's all I can do. There's no devices. The second archetype that I get inspiration from is the saint. Now, the saint has very, very strong opinions about distractions and Netflix, as you can imagine. About those thousands or millions of hours of television, he sees the opportunity to actually do thousands or millions of hours of meditation. And the way I try to express the saint is by spending more time in nature. But finally, the most important inspiration I get is from my inner child. If you look at children, especially before we educate intuition out of them, they always know what to do. They always know what is right. They always know how to play and what to play at. And as a child, I always knew what was cool. And cars were cool, and Alfa Romeo were the coolest. Now, this is my invitation to you to draw your own map. And to draw your own individual map, but also to draw the map for the rest of the organization. Where would I start? Well, tomorrow morning, please book a date with your CTO. Make sure that you meet the engineering team regularly. Call an engineer friend, invite them for dinner. The future is already here. They're already living in this agentic era. You just need to tap into their knowledge right now. Get agentic fever. Seriously. Experience what it looks like. Run a simulation. Is your organization resilient? What would happen if 100% of your teams burnt out? Run that simulation. See what it looks like. Because this is, most probably, we're going to have incredible orchestration that avoids all of that in 3 hours, okay? But right now, as of when I speak, this is what is happening. And finally, I would say your number one priority should be making sure that you create an organization of clear thinkers. Whatever that looks like, you know better than I do. But whatever you do, make sure that front and center this clear thinking, and fortunately, basically all of science and all of knowledge, all the knowledge that we've actually brought through the ages is about clear thinking. Philosophy, logic, systems thinking, chemistry, physics, mathematics, psychology, economics, they're all about clear thinking. So yesterday, I was driving, I wanted to drive to the airport, so I put the keys in my new car. Nope. And it wouldn't start. You know, modern cars draws too much electricity, and it didn't start. So I don't usually do that, but I took the Alfa Romeo and I started driving to the airport. And this is my way of having the necessity to have a clear head and clear inputs. An old car needs to be warmed up. And the difference between a good input and a bad input is the car rattling or purring like a pussycat. So this is what I wish for you, to find your own version of a retreat, of a space where you can find your Alfa Romeo. So you see, in the end, the answer was buying a sports car, but I know you had a Porsche in mind, not an old Alfa. So you see, it's going to be testing times. It's going to be times that ask you to use the crisis, but I think that we can go from malaise to renaissance. We need to accept, in the word of Zora Neale Hurston, we need to accept that there are years that ask questions and years that answer. Thank you.
I knew. Thank you, Matteo.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matteo. There were some questions, but we have time. For this one, it's a very interesting one. We often say as to our team, hey, only outcome counts. How you get the result does not matter, but with AI it does again, right?
It all flipped. So the KPI used to be, well, this is our North Star number, and this is where we're going as an organization. Now, basically, the mission statement becomes more important than the KPI. So if you're able to align the whole organization on what is clear thinking? Like I said clear thinking, what does it even mean? I talked about inspiration. What does that mean? I think this is the new job of a company, is to define a way that people know instinctively, oh, this is the right thing. And it's hard.
Thank you. I hope this question was answered.
And whoever asked this question gets Neuromancer from William Gibson.
Wow.
Yeah, so come find me later.
Good. Whoever has more questions, you can come to Matteo later. He has...
No, now. I'm going to give away also the creative act.
One more question.
Yeah.
On Slido there is not. Do we have one more?
Oh, but we have a microphone, so whoever has a question, please raise their hands.
Come on, dare to. Ask better questions.
The discomfort is real, but the book is also real.
Hi, Matteo. I would like to ask, how much time do you actually spend meditating and in that room that you had with those books, instead of being agentic and...
Only 1 hour on a good day. I'm absolutely rubbish at being a saint. This is why I said that I draw inspiration from the saint. On the other hand, I don't want to tell you what to do. And I try not to tell myself, you know, these are the rules and this is what you should do, because then everything becomes discipline-based. And instead, I want it to be based on the intuitive sense of what it feels right to do. And I know that when I slow down, it feels right to spend 2 or 3 hours just reading and writing. On the other hand, if you have these agents running all night, it's almost irresistible. At some point, after 1 hour, 2 hours that you're up, you want to check on them. How many other Leadership Horizon conferences have they found? How many other opportunities? How have they grown my business? So it's a lot of work. And I'm talking about these things because I criticize myself all the time. Book is yours.
One more? Maybe you should show the book. Maybe they get why. Joseph Campbell.
Over there.
Danke, Florian.
Thank you. Hi, Matteo. Have you found, or how do you set for yourself a goal when enough is enough? Like the story of the taxi driver that says 5 is enough. How many agents are enough? How much work is enough? How many hours are enough?
I'm not as wise as some of the developers I meet. And some of the developers I meet, for instance, they put a limit of 2 or 3 hours of work a day. That's it, or at least 2 or 3 hours of work with agents a day. And then never more than a stretch of 30 minutes with agents, because you have this constant switching, etc., especially if you use multiple agents. And for instance, I do the worst thing. So I have multiple agents doing different things inside the company. So some are working on marketing, outreach, SEO, copywriting, and so on and so forth. So this is what I'm learning from them. And it's incredibly hard to think, okay, it's 2 hours. Okay, punch out, go for a walk. Without your phone, because otherwise you're going to be chatting to Gemini or to some other LLM.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Wow. Great. I was just thinking how I do it. I guess I was so much in fever in my childhood that there was always TV on that I decided when I was 20, no TV at home. And that saved a lot of time and focus.
Yeah. That's very wise. Yeah, wisdom is
and
a superpower.
And the new love is also great. Then you don't stay long in office and play with devices in the evening on the couch.
Absolutely.
I know what I'm talking about. I'm married in November, so that's why.
Oh, nice.
So if you need some advice for that, yes, I can recommend. Matteo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure. We'll see each other later.